Welcome back, everyone, to episode 2 of Hose History. We have Cooper from the Chicken Coop live and on air, along with JB and Alex Smith, me, per usual. And today we're going to be talking about Pearl Harbor. We got just like a log to read through and just kind of tell you all the events, and we'll do some general discussion. But Josh, if you want to get us rolling.
Yeah, first before we go, I know how we kind of got it laid out. I know y'all are looking at it too. Do y'all want to kind of read it like bullet point to bullet point and just go all back and forth on it?
Yeah, we can just alternate.
Yeah,
So me, Al, Coop, me, Al, Coop, me, Al, Coop.
that's good.
Yep.
All right. So for those who don't know, today we are talking about Pearl Harbor. I know we mentioned it on the podcast yesterday. Al, I don't know if you mentioned that, but today we are talking about Pearl Harbor. And for those who don't know, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor was actually a week ago today. So this is the
82nd.
82nd, good math, 82nd anniversary of Pearl Harbor. I typed it in my calculator, Alec, and last time we did a Zoom, we had a little trouble with the calculator, so I got it right this time.
That was hilarious.
Dude, oh, you watched that, Coop?
Yeah.
Dude, we had trouble with that, man.
Yeah, that was funny.
Before we get going, today's podcast is sponsored by Zen Pouches, specifically citrus. And boys,
The bruise. The bruise.
Not happy about the Bush Light, but it's all that was in the fridge. So,
Well, I'm working with the Natty Tall Boys, so work with me.
so Pearl Harbor is a U.S. naval base near Honolulu, Hawaii, that was the scene of a devastating surprise attack by the Japanese forces on December 7th, 1941.
just before 8 a.m. on that Sunday morning, hundreds of Japanese fighter planes descended on the base where they managed to destroy or damage nearly 20 American naval vessels, including 8 battleships and over 300 airplanes. More than 2,400 Americans died in the attack, including civilians, and another 1,000 people were wounded. The day after the assault, President Franklin D. Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war on Japan.
Yeah, the attack was a surprise, but Japan and the United States have been edging towards war for decades.
The United States was particularly unhappy with Japan's increasingly belligerent attitude towards China, surprisingly. Interesting how we stand now towards China.
Yeah.
The Japanese government believed that the only way to solve its economic and demographic problems was to expand into its its neighbor's territory and take over its important import market. Sorry, having little trouble.
Japan declared war on China in 1937, resulting in the Nanking Massacre and other atrocities. American officials responded to this aggression with a battery of economic sanctions and trade embargoes. They reasoned that without access to money and goods, and especially essential supplies like oil, Japan would have to rein in its expansionism.
So sanctions were made, and the sanctions made the Japanese more determined to stand their ground, and then DC and Japan were going back and forth trying to negotiate with each other, but no one would budge, and which ultimately seemed like a war was about to lead up, which happens with the rest.
So, like Cooper said, pretty much the war was just kind of a brewing, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, back and forth.
for sure. And the Japanese plan was pretty simple. It was destroy the United States Pacific Fleet. That way, the Americans would not be able to fight back as the Japan's armed forces spread across the South Pacific. So their plan was basically what I just said, to take out the fleet in the Pacific United States and then attack from there. So basically, they would take out all of that fleet, and basically the U.S. would have nothing to defend them coming in.
There's actually a really good movie. I think it's just called Pearl Harbor. It came out in maybe the early 2000s.
Great movie.
That, per the usual, I was like 6 years old, and my dad let me watch a movie about Pearl Harbor, and I always called it the airplane movie. Dude, always wanted to watch it. It's like, Dad, can we watch the airplane movie? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
There was no limit to when it came to war movies and stuff like that, like Saving Private Ryan. Watched it, I was probably 7 or 8 years old. Scarred me forever, but good stuff. Anyways, some specifics of the attack. So December 7th, 1941, after months of planning and practice, the Japanese launched their attack about 8 a.m. Japanese planes filled the sky over Pearl Harbor. Bombs and bullets rained down on the vessels below. At 8:10, an 1,800-pound bomb, 1,800-pound bomb, that's insane, smashed the deck of the battleship USS Arizona and landed in her forward ammunition magazine. The ship exploded and sank with more than 1,000 men trapped inside.
That's just unbelievable, man. I mean, 1,000 trapped inside, 1,800-pound bomb. I mean, that's just it's truly like to think about, even though it was 82 years ago, it's like it's still like breathtaking to me that that actually happened, you know? It's just like war is so crazy.
Well, you can go now. You can still go today and see that ship sunk underwater. And like,
It's a monument, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, you go there and like some people say that you can still see like I don't know how often it is, but air bubbles come out from inside the ship like still to this day. Like you'll just see like random air bubbles come out like just and I don't know if like how long that's been, or maybe it's not doing it anymore. But like I remember reading somewhere at one point, like people that go visit the monument you'll still see some air bubbles come out from under like the ship, and like people go see it, and you can see it like clearly in the water, like sunk into the ground.
That's crazy, dude. I want to go out there bad.
It was nuts to think like that long, you know, they're like, hey, let's not take this out of the water. We'll just leave it. And then now it's like a monument, you know, like how long did it sit in there and people were debating like should we take it out, should we leave it, like what should we do with this?
I think they have a big floating dock type deal with a glass bottom where you can clearly see the ship over there. That'd be
I think
super.
that is what it's like.
Oh my gosh, dude. That's crazy.
I mean you can get right up on it.
That's wild. Coop,
Whose turn is it? I feel like we're playing popcorn.
Coop,
Is it me?
torpedoes.
All right, next, torpedoes pierced the shell of the battleship USS Oklahoma with 400 sailors aboard. The Oklahoma lost her balance, rolled onto her side, and slipped underwater. Less than 2 hours later, the surprise attack was over, and every battleship in Pearl Harbor, USS Arizona, USS Oklahoma, USS California, USS West Virginia, the rest are USS. I'm just starting naming them out. Utah, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Nevada had sustained significant damage. All but USS Arizona and USS Utah were eventually salvaged and repaired. So I'm assuming one of those two is the ones underwater.
100%. And I think we're actually going to get into that. So we might answer that question here in a minute, honestly. If not, we'll look it up at the end. So basically, in all, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor crippled or destroyed nearly 20 American ships and more than 300 airplanes. Dry docks and airfields were likewise destroyed. Most importantly, more than 2,000 people died.
So here's the kicker: is the USS naval supremacy in the Pacific really came from its carriers, aircraft carriers, rather than battleships. And luckily enough, all of the aircraft carriers were away from Pearl Harbor. Some had returned to the mainland, and others were delivering planes to troops on Midway and the Wake Islands.
So they were like ready to go out there, and they're like,
I mean, yeah, I think that the U.S. saw that conflict was coming, but maybe not imminent. And so we had our carriers kind of dispersed around the Pacific. And I mean, the Japanese, that was what they wanted to take out, was our carriers and our battleships. And they got two battleships, but they missed the prize.
So my question is, I guess it's just for y'all, but I don't know if y'all can answer it. Obviously, like it seems like the US kind of knew maybe not the attack on Pearl Harbor was gonna happen, but something attack from the Japanese was going to happen to the US, but they expected it coming, so why didn't we maybe prepare enough for that?
If my memory serves me correctly, there were training flights coming from San Francisco to Pearl Harbor, and the Japanese positioned themselves in such a way where when it popped up on radar, it was just assumed that it was training flights. And by the time that they realized that it was Japanese coming in, not the training flights, it was pretty much too late.
So if somebody's got their computer up in front of them, because I'm on my computer too, if you want to Google this for me, because I don't think we have it in the Google Doc that we're reading off of, but how many kamikaze pilots were in Pearl Harbor attack? Because the only
I'll
reason
look it up.
is because the kamikaze was pretty prominent in World War II with the Japanese, and I'm just curious to know if they flew their planes in directly into ships, because we know they dropped the 1,800-pound bomb.
It doesn't say specifically on the kamikaze pilots, but it does say the Japanese strike force consisted of 353 aircraft, which included 40 torpedo planes, 103 level bombers, 131 dive bombers, and 79 fighters.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they definitely, like crashed into the ships because that's what, I guess, quote unquote definition of kamikaze. What I think, or I've been taught was, they're just like, they're there to wreck their plane and that's it. Like they're just like, cause mass obstruction and they don't care like if they live or not. So, it's not necessarily like our fighters, we're like doing strategic air fighting, like, navigating through the air with opponents. Like they're like, I feel like they like saw it like that. Like, this is their target, and they're like, we're flying straight to it, like going into it.
This says it's not specific to Pearl Harbor, but in the Pacific War in general, almost 4,000 Japanese pilots died in suicide attacks that killed over 7,000 Allied troops.
Yeah.
These
So
are
they were just,
World
estimations
War II?
in World War II in the Pacific theater. Yeah.
yeah.
That is
So
insane.
they were just when they got in that plane, they knew like they were dead too.
Dude, that is so unreal to think about, man.
Well,
Yeah.
dude, it's like that's like a major part of Japanese culture, or it was back then at least, to where to all ends you are serving the emperor and his will. And
Yeah. It was like honor.
honorable thing you could do was to sacrifice your life
Yeah.
for the cause.
It was like honor. Yeah.
Crazy. Coop, next one. Moreover,
Yeah. Moreover, the Pearl Harbor assault had left the base's most vital onshore facilities, oil storage depot. Oh, sorry, oil storage depots, repair shops, shipyards, and submarine docks intact. As a result, the U.S. Navy was able to rebound relatively quickly from the attack.
so
So,
the attack on Pearl Harbor killed 2,403 U.S. personnel, including sailors, soldiers, and civilians. Additionally, 1,178 people were wounded. 129 Japanese soldiers were killed. Half of the dead at Pearl Harbor were on the USS Arizona. Today, the sunken battleship serves as a memorial to all Americans who died in the attack. So
there
I
it is.
was reading up on something earlier, that there was one Japanese soldier that survived, and his plane crashed in the water and he survived and washed up on shore. and the U.S. held him as a POW and then released. He served as a POW throughout the entirety of World War II. And then, so basically, his family pretty much thought he died, and the U.S. released him at the end of World War II and let him go back home. And he pretty much was like, "Hey, I'm alive."
Dude,
And what did his family move on?
Like that. I mean, think about it. World War II lasted what, 4 or 5 years, right? How long was World War II?
1939 to 1945.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so 6 years.
6 years. So he washed up on shore because his plane crashed trying to attack Pearl Harbor, and he survived the plane crash, and US held him as a POW. And then like he, they kept him alive, everything, and then released him and let him go back home at the end of World War II, and they thought he was dead.
Yeah.
I've never heard about, I don't think this is one particular instance, but this was like quite a common thing where Japanese soldiers were either left behind, missing in action, something like that, on all these remote Pacific islands. And they basically just continued their life on these islands, thinking that the war was still going on. And some of them were discovered, decades later, still like just with the mindset that the war was still going.
That's
That's
crazy.
crazy.
I've
So
heard of,
they're on a time capsule.
Yes, literally.
I've heard of that too, Alec. I mean, that dude, it's unreal, man.
Well, getting into the POW stuff, I mean, I know it sucked both ways. Like, and I'm not like saying anything was right and wrong, but like just from stuff you read, growing up, like through school and like teaching you about everything, like those POW camps sucked.
Brutal. Brutal.
Like bad. Like I'm talking about even on our end, like treating the Japanese like that. And then I'm not saying like we shouldn't have, because I mean they attacked us, and that's what I'm saying. Like it's not like I'm like, oh, we're awful. But I'm just saying, like, from reading on both sides, like doesn't matter which one you're in, like you were working your ass off.
It was so inhumane too.
Yeah.
What the school textbooks don't teach you about is the internment camps that the U.S. had running for Japanese American citizens of Japanese descent. Because, I mean, the West Coast was littered with Asian immigrants, and we
Yeah.
ended up hundreds of thousands of legal U.S. citizens of Japanese descent and sent them to camps.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I mean, that's something that they, like you said, dude, they don't teach that in history books. And it's just like, even on the United States side, it's just like how messed up and inhumane a lot of stuff was, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so crazy to think about, like nowadays, like how close we are to another world war. And it's just like how crazy stuff can go, because like people don't read about the US, all the messed up things that we as a country have done. Like you've got to do your own research on that. Like they don't teach that in the history books, man.
Yeah.
It's
But in
messed
our
up.
defense, I mean, war is war. I mean, you can't, nothing's fair. It's like a dog eat dog world. So it's like, if they thought they could get some vital information out of them, that could help. But then again, that's very few. They're also, like you said, with the camps, there's families in there. But I'm just saying, it was happening on the other side too. So I mean, war is war. It's not like you can't have feelings. I mean, you talk to these guys in the military, that have been in situations like that, and I mean, they obviously aren't thinking exactly like we are. Like, dang, it was really messed up on both sides. They're just like thinking survival. So.
It's just the my point is being like how inhumane it was. It's just like
Oh yeah, for
scary.
sure, 100%.
Well, the
It's
victors
scary.
write history. You can go back to the oldest recorded history. The victors write how they want to write it.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's right.
100%. The winners write history.
Where are we at? Okay. President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed a joint session of the U.S. Congress on December 8th, the day after the crushing Pearl Harbor attack. He said, this is a direct quote, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. He went on to say, no matter how long it may take us to overcome the premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. I believe I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the utmost, but will make very certain that this form of treachery shall never endanger us again.
Dude, probably one of the greatest quotes in United States history, honestly. I mean,
FDR was tough, dude. You don't, I mean, he was the only president ever that was voted for a third term, I believe. And he served, what, 10 years of his
oh, but
term?
with the Great Depression and World War II, it was rough times in the United States. So, it kind of needed to be done. Obviously, it was a special situation, only president in history to do that. And, it needed to be done.
Well, truthfully, I mean, I'm a fan of FDR to an extent, but it wasn't him that brought us out of the Great Depression. It was World War II. It completely jump-started America's industry. I mean, we started pumping out weapons and munitions and supplies and vehicles. I mean, that was what brought us out of the Great Depression. Another thing is that the Great Depression was not unique to America. It was felt all over the world. And I mean, that's even part of the reason why Japan was struggling to make resources to support their expansionisms because of the Great Depression.
It's crazy how it all plays into each other. Is it me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so after the Pearl Harbor attack and for the first time during years of discussion debate, the American people were united in their determination to go to war, hence World War II.
So the Japanese had wanted to got the United States into an agreement to lift the economic sanctions against them. Instead, they had pushed their adversary into a global conflict that ultimately resulted in Japan's first occupation by a foreign power. But did you know that the single vote against Congress declaration of war against Japan came from Representative Jeanette Rankin of Montana? Rankin was a pacifist who had also voted against the American entrance into World War One. End quote. As a woman, she said, end quote, I can't go to war. I refuse to send anyone else.
Respectable stance, honestly.
Yeah.
So on December 8th, Congress approved Roosevelt's declaration of war on Japan. 3 days later, Japan's allies, Germany and Italy, declared war against the United States. And then I think y'all know what happened next. The U.S. subsequently declared war on the Axis powers, and then now we're fighting a global war on two fronts.
And for the second time, Congress reciprocated, declaring war on the European powers. More than 2 years after the start of World War II, the United States had entered the conflict. And then, obviously, in the end, we became back-to-back world champions.
Although we
That's
didn't.
my favorite shirt of all time. When I see people have back-to-back world champs as USA on, I'm like, that's a good shirt.
Yeah, dude, it's just so crazy to me that only it was 82 years ago, the attack of Pearl Harbor. So the end of World War II was 76 years ago. Give or take. But it's wild to me, like how not that long ago that was.
Yeah.
It really wasn't.
So
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, talking about how long ago that was, I mean, we're talking about our grandparents and great grandparents that lived through it. I mean, my grandparents, or at least my grandfather, was involved in the Korean conflict. And then, our grandparents were probably involved in Korea and Vietnam, our great grandparents. What I wanted to say there is there was a hatred of Japanese people among our great grandparents' generation following World
Oh
War
yeah.
II. I mean, they were racist against Japanese people of the highest degree because they just never forgot Pearl Harbor. I remember a story of, I mean, it's not funny as a whole, but it might be okay to laugh at. But one of my buddy's great granddads going into like a Japanese hibachi restaurant singing "Remember Pearl Harbor" to all the people in there.
It yeah. Did that grandfather like was he like in the military or was he just like an old guy just doing that?
He was in the military, yeah.
Yeah, so you get I mean, and also you gotta look at it like I mean the dude was in the military, fought the fought, like, you can't be like upset with a guy. I mean, if anything, that's like a flashback. And I'm not saying like PTSD or anything, but that's like a hardcore like core memory.
Yeah, it's probably like some 20-year-old kid working the hibachi.
Yeah, like what the hell is this guy saying? Like, and he's probably like, you don't know, boy.
A buddy said him and his entire family were just sitting here like this, and he was just going on to remember Pearl Harbor.
So, Coop, me and Alec have a great uncle that actually served in World War II. And I don't think he saw any conflict, but I remember when we were little kids, Alec, I don't know if you remember, I know we've talked about it before. So he died when we were real young, but
Yeah.
he always said, like, when I was heading over, like Hitler heard that I was coming and he gave up. He said that's when because he heard I was coming. So that is one thing that I always remember about like World War II is me and Alec's great uncle just
Two
always
of my two of my favorite quotes of all time come from Japanese admirals. One was after the Pearl Harbor attack, before America had fully retaliated, a Japanese admiral said, "We have just awoken a sleeping giant." And secondly, another Japanese admiral, when asked about invading the mainland US, he said, "There will be a rifle behind every blade of grass."
Yeah.
Doesn't that just make you, mm.
Well, to give some comic relief, I know I brought up Chipper on the pod last night, and just to let y'all know, he's just absolutely hovering over me right now. He just wanted to get in.
Yeah.
He's a historian himself.
What's up, Chipper Jones?
He's just sitting there staring at me like, dude, come on, like throw something in for me.
Yeah.
We might have discussed it last night. I'll show y'all what my dog did for me.
River is in the room with Jenna, so I'm not gonna go get River.
So
Gotta hurt
The
foot.
Chip was just standing like hovering.
here's the book I've been reading lately, and Robin thought that it looked better in two pieces. So tore up the binding and one of the pages as well, ripped the cover off, ripped off all of the appendices. So that was super awesome.
I just had to share that. I mean, he was just literally standing up on the couch like 3 inches away from my face. And I'm like, what are you doing?
He's very curious. He's interested.
Yeah. He's like, what's going on? But yeah, dude, I mean, talk about y'all's great uncle. I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago, but I mean, like you said, great grandparents. Because I think my grandpa was like, at least the one I have living now, he was like 3 maybe when Pearl Harbor hit. I think he was born in 39. So, or he was 2 or 3.
When he enlisted, he was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And that was the end of World War II.
Men were different back then, dude. Absolutely different.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was like a normal thing. Like when you were like 18, like everybody was like, we're going to serve. Like, that's it. Like
me and Alec do have distant family members that served in World War II, World War I, and Vietnam.
Josh, my grandmother on my dad's side was just super into ancestry. and you would go in her office and she just has stacks and stacks of papers just tracing lineage back. We actually had, not super close, relatively distant, but we had a family member in each branch of the military on D-Day.
There
Oh,
goes
we
Coop.
lost Coop.
Can you hear me out?
Yeah, I still got you.
Well, yeah. I mean, dude, that's crazy, man. I mean, it's just it. We did lose Coop, unfortunately. Maybe he'll join back, but dude, that's crazy. I mean, we had a family member in each branch of the military on D-Day. I mean, that's just it's truly unreal to me to think about. And do you know who actually has all of that paperwork and stuff now?
I have no idea where it is now, but I mean, dude,
My grandfather has it.
she could trace our lineage. I remember her telling me about relatives that fought in the Civil War and thinking about, oh my gosh, I mean, that was 5, 6 generations, probably like 7 or 8 generations ago. She had that stuff traced all the way back.
No, man, my grandfather has all of that paperwork now.
Oh, he has it. Oh, yeah, dude. I bet it's so much.
He has it, man. I mean, he showed it to me too. I mean, it's pretty breathtaking, man. I mean, it'll make you tear up. It really will. Just some of the stories. I mean, I've read them personally. I'm not going to get into it, but it's we. I need to ask them. We need to get a hold of that and actually read into it together.
Dude, I'd absolutely love to. Not to like stay completely zeroed in on World War II, but there's just so many interesting aspects of it. I wouldn't mind doing an episode on D-Day.
No kidding, dude. I mean, we're kind of on the track of, obviously Pearl Harbor. Maybe next episode we could, in 2 weeks or next week, it doesn't matter to me, honestly. Maybe 2 weeks would be better because of Christmas is coming up. Um, Maybe like after Christmas, before New Year's, we could do D-Day and then dive into maybe like a little bit of Band of Brothers, and then there's Coop. Can't hear you. No sound on you, buddy. We got nothing on you, Coop.
We got nothing, Coop. Can you hear us? You know Morse code?
Okay. I don't know what's going on with Coop, dude. This is turning into a great end of the pod, honestly.
Speaking of Morse code, if we're just talking about, wars of the 20th century, there is this like bone chilling clip of a POW in the Vietnam War being televised, and they're basically holding him hostage, making him say that they're treating the POWs very well, and he's blinking torture in Morse code with his eyes during the interview. Crazy
Really?
stuff. Yeah.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes, we got
yeah. So
Sorry, y'all. My
now,
phone died.
now that's Coop back, tell him about our family members on D-Day. He cut out like right.
Yeah, I heard family members, and then my phone died. I like sprinted to get a charger.
Oh, Josh and I had 4 distant family members, each one in a different branch of the military that participated in D-Day.
Wow, you
Yeah.
have a whole family there.
Yeah, dude. It's all so my mom
They
and
heard them Smiths were coming, dude.
yeah, man. My mom and his dad are first cousins. So my grandfather and his grandmother are brother and sister.
Okay,
So my grandfather is the only boy and he has 3 sisters.
okay, I got you.
And one of
All
our
right.
was in World War II. And so yeah, man, I mean we've had a lot of family members that have served. And dude, it's just Alec was talking about earlier, while you were gone. that his grandmother was really interested in family history, and she had all this paperwork of just like the family lineage and all this stuff and people that served in the military, and it dates back to Civil War.
This was when there was no ancestry.com. There wasn't 23andMe or anything like that. I mean, she is just piling through records and newspapers.
Oh, so
And
she has like paper records going back to Civil War.
yes, I mean, her office looked like a library of just.
Okay, I thought you were saying she had enough records to trace her family back to Civil War, but you're saying she has physical records.
Yes.
So
That's insane.
unfortunately, she has passed, and my grandfather, I'm pretty sure, has those records.
That's nuts.
So we were talking about,
Stuff to go through.
yeah, we were, like Alex said, that we really kind of want to go through that.
Yeah.
It may be interesting of maybe after we read through it, maybe if we want to do a pod about it, man. I think that might be.
Yeah. I think read through it, analyze the data, like get what y'all want to go out there, and then like I'd say do it.
Get in there and crunch the numbers, dude.
Yeah, get in there, get your stuff right, just find everything out that you can, and then definitely have an amazing pod about it.
There could be some fascinating stories in there.
Yeah.
So Coop, what we were talking about again while you were gone was, obviously Christmas is coming up and New Year's. Maybe kind of like after Christmas before New Year's, doing another history segment of maybe diving into D-Day.
Okay. Yeah.
And then after that, since we're kind of on the World War II track, maybe do Band of Brothers can go a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to do that. Kind of thinking about that again, maybe do like a brief kind of run over on it. I'm not real sure because I feel like that one could go for multiple hours and hours. But after that, I was really thinking about doing Oppenheimer. Of just
I
kind
like.
of diving in.
Yeah, we did say that on the first one. We could get that's a whole nother episode we could get into.
That was kind of I mean, you can tie that directly into Operation Paperclip because they were running covert missions during the heat of World War II, like when the fighting was the fiercest in the European theater. We were going into Sweden and Nazi occupied territory to get scientists out to work on our nuclear program.
Yeah.
Well, boys,
I'd even like to work it up to you know, to where we are today, like cover all that. And then we go to like maybe like Vietnam War and then, keep going. Then we hit like 9/11 and get into those conspiracies. And then all the crazy shit.
oh well, we kind of started in World War II, so like I feel like if we want to kind of dive into the history, let's go back to Revolutionary War and kind of go from there.
That's great too. Yeah. I was just throwing ideas out there. If we're going to do history, we could, really, cover some great points. I feel like it'd be interesting to talk about.
One thing I do want to do is kind of dive into Napoleon, but I want us all to see that movie first.
Yeah, dude, that is like a
Read
great
up on
movie.
about it like prior to us seeing the movie and see how accurate, because I've seen like a lot of stuff on it, like maybe a little bit wasn't historically accurate. So like what I'm saying is like us read up on about it and then watch the movie and then do a pod about it.
Yeah, I'm down for that. It looks like a great movie.
Yeah,
I thought it was really good
Joaquin
too.
Phoenix is the man.
He is the man.
Yeah.
Well, boys, y'all got anything else to say before we get out of here? It's getting a little late.
Remember
I'm good.
Al?
Remember Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
remember Pearl Harbor, 82 years. So that's crazy. I mean, a lot of people died. Remember Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, be sure to like and subscribe. This is going to be posted on Twitter and YouTube and hopefully Spotify if we figure it out finally. And be sure to like and subscribe. And Cooper, thank you for helping out. with a little history, man.
No
This is
problem, brother.
great. This has truly been great, and I hope to keep this going, especially in the off season of football. Maybe we can start doing pods on just history here and there when stuff starts slowing down.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
Al, you got anything else, brother?
That is the conclusion. Host History episode 2. I think Coop should just be a mainstay for Host History along with the Chicken Coop from now on. Good stuff, boys.
Appreciate it.
Coop
Love
is
it.
an official member of the Water Hose Drinkers. Cooper,
Love it.
you're getting in the bio, brother. You're an official member of the Water Hose Drinkers, brother.
Let's go.
All right,
Let's
boys.
get it.
See y'all.
All right. See you.